It's not very innocent. Now you would think smile, that's very simplistic. What is that? Why would smile be important? Now here's an interesting point for me. We forget to smile. Why do we forget to smile? Because we're busy. We're concentrating, we're concerned, we're worried about something. In the back of our mind, we've got a lot of balls we're juggling in there at the same time. Things are coming up, so our face often reflects that concentration, and we forget to smile. And so when we greet people in their work, they might be getting a very concentrated, serious face. Now, a smiling face is an entirely different message, isn't it? A very serious, concentrated face can sometimes look a bit angry. Now, I'm still waiting to get the magic bullet here in Japan to determine if that Japanese face that I'm looking at is angry or just serious. Because as a foreigner, actually I can't tell the difference. I look at that face, it looks angry to me, I don't know if it's angry or unhappy or just concentrating. I can't tell. Maybe Japanese people can tell. But there's the point, the first impression. Now you might think first impression was someone I've just met, but what about first impression of the day? What about first impression after lunch? What about first impression you come back from some meetings, you come back to the office? Now we know as leaders, we radiate the atmosphere. If we've had a bad start to the day, and we come in grumpy, we are dealing with subordinates who are all absolute masters of boss watching. They are looking at us, looking at our body language, looking at how we walk, listening to our tone, watching what's on our face, and they're reading us. Oh, is the boss in a good mood today? Should I mention that holiday I want to take to the boss now? I'll leave it to tomorrow. I've got this project I've been thinking about. Maybe I shouldn't bring it up now. They are studying us like an absolute hawk. And if we come in dark, gloomy, what happens to the atmosphere of the whole office? We take it down, don't we? It's like we take all the air out of the balloon. We take the energy out. We take the motivation out because we are radiating a negative vibe. But imagine if we made, we've got a lot on our mind, but it's our practice to smile. When we do our greeting in the morning, instead of, hi gozaimasu, hi, with a face that doesn't look happy, what about if we said, hi gozaimasu with a smile? What if we looked at our colleagues with a smile and greeted them by name? What if we looked at each other when we meet in the day and we start with a smile? What if as the boss, as you approach your subordinate, instead of coming in with a very serious face about, Kenneth, look, we've got this project, we've really got to get going. I've got this very serious face on my face here, and I'm very tense, and I'm projecting something to you. What are you going to feel? You're going to feel pressure. Oh, I better be careful what I say. Boss is tense. What if I came to you with a smile? Kenneth, we've got this project that we've got to work on. It's an entirely different thing, isn't it? It's an entirely different thing. So sometimes when we're working with colleagues or we're bosses, we forget such a simple thing. And when we are particularly stressed and concentrating, sometimes we have to remind ourselves to smile. Right? So this is one to put in the pocket there. Think about that. Next one.
Can I just...
Yeah, go ahead.
Anecdote? I have a very nice working colleague from Peru. And usually
Where's your colleague from?
Peru.
Peru, right.
And the Latinos, they usually always smile. And so today, she was super busy. And I could see that from 5 meters away on the face expression. And I went over to her and said, you dropped something. And she looked around, was looking something. And she didn't see anything. I said, you dropped your smile.
Nice one.
And then it was all good from that moment.
Yeah. Well, she probably appreciated that you noticed that she was suffering, under stress, concerned, and you took the time to go over and just say, you dropped something, you made a joke of it, you lost your smile, and then that made her laugh, and suddenly her energy came back, her motivation came back, her equilibrium came back, A smile can be very, very powerful, particularly first impression. First impression, critical. Well, we mentioned about name, and you talked about Hajimashite, I've met you 5 times, can't remember your name. What's the impression on that? Now this is very interesting. Dale Carnegie discovered this too, and here's the issue. Japan is a tough place in many ways. When I phone a company, I ring up the company, I'll get XYZ company here in Japanese, XYZ company de gozaimasu. Oh, can I speak to Suzuki-san, please? Oh, this is Suzuki. Well, how do I feel? Oh, I didn't remember Suzuki-san's voice. I feel bad. I've forgotten them. So in my own company, I train everyone. You answer the phone, it's Dale Carnegie training, this is Greg's story. Or when we talked before about meeting people, when I meet people, hi, Greg's story. I tried to take out the embarrassment of not remembering my name by giving them my name. And this is a very critical thing. Why don't we remember people's names? Well, one is we don't often hear the name. So in Dale Carnegie, we teach people how to remember other people's names, and we also teach people how to say their name. Now, often people say, yeah, hi, my name is Greg Story. Well, maybe you didn't catch the name was Greg Story because it was all jumbled together. And maybe you introduce yourself like that. Right? Well, what if you didn't do that? What if you actually slowed it down a bit and said, my name is... Yes, it's a great example. That's right. He said, Bond, James Bond. Now think about that. The chances of someone remembering his name are high. He's given the surname, and then he's given his first name and the surname again. He's repeated it. That is not a bad practice. And what we teach is, hi, my name is, small break right there, okay, a pause. Greg, don't jumble the names together, put a part in there, story, and hit the story with a little bit punch than the other names to highlight it. We emphasize the strength of the surname. Hi, my name is Greg Story. So I say it in a way that's easier to remember. So again, I'm giving that person a good chance to remember who I am. And when they say their name, if it's a difficult name, you might get them to repeat it, ask them about the name, use any number of techniques, visualization of that name, association of that name, to try and recall it. Now by chance, I was at Tokyo American Club today, and I was at lunch there, I was leaving, and I saw a gentleman I know, I hadn't seen him for quite a while, and he was talking to someone, so just waved, and I was going out to get the taxi line. And then he came out to the taxi line, and I greeted him by name. And he said, oh, I'm surprised you remember my name. Mm-hmm. Now, how did that make him feel, do you think? I remembered him. What do you think the feeling for him was?
I really wish I remembered this guy's name.
Well, true, but what else did you think?
This person needs me for something.
This person remembered me. I feel appreciated. I feel important. I worked for a company in Australia, which is now called Jones Lang LaSalle. It was called Jones Lang Wooten in those days. And in the many years ago, when you had typing pools and telex machines and receptionists and this type of thing, there was a lady who was a receptionist in that company. She was one of the most highly paid people in that company. She had a phenomenal memory for name and voice. And I found this myself. I didn't ever ring the Sydney office very often, but I rang them once and I asked for a person, and she put me through to that person. And probably a couple of months later, I rang again. And as soon as she heard my voice, she said, Dr. Story, who would you like to speak with today? I can tell you, I was just flabbergasted. And I felt like, wow, I'm an important person in this company. So the power of the name is to make that person feel important, and also for yourself, how to say your own name in a way, slow it down. Don't rush it out, and don't rush their name. If you didn't catch their name, say, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch your name. Would you mind repeating your name? You'll have a much better chance of remembering that person by hearing the name and then trying to do some association or link of where you met that person with the name, or some association, names in English, like Brown, they had a brown tie, or, Smith, they looked like they worked in a smithy's, making horseshoes or something. You do all these bizarre connections between the name and the image to have that memory point. So this is very, very powerful, particularly when you're meeting clients, particularly when you're meeting colleagues that you haven't seen for a while, or people you meet at networking events. Very powerful. Let's look at the next one. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Well, this can't be right, can it? What do we like to talk about? Ourselves, exactly. Anyone here in sales? Right? Salespeople love to talk, but the best salespeople are phenomenal listeners. So here's a question. Why would this be useful? Why would we shut up and let the other person talk? And by the way, is there anyone in this room who has ever jumped in over the top of someone who was speaking while they were speaking? Anyone ever done that? How about finish the sentence for them? Anyone ever done that? How about segue the conversation to something else? How about that, right? We do it all the time, don't we? But what if we actually let that person finish their sentence and we waited? What if we really listened to what they were saying, really concentrated? And this is the interesting point. Can we listen for what is not being said? Is that possible? Body language, tone. Someone mentioned tone before, right? And why would encourage them to talk about themselves be an advantage? Let's have a little discussion in our groups. How could we use this facility to restrain ourselves from wanting to talk all the time, restrain ourselves from talking about ourselves all the time, and flip it and make them the center of attention and make them the person who's talking about themselves rather than us? How can we make a better relationship by employing something like that? In our groups, let's discuss. Anyone have a question about what we've got to do? We all good? Let's do that. How can we use this to improve our relationships with others?
What was I just telling now? I mean, of course, if you listen, you get more information, then you stay in the background, and you don't reveal too much about yourself. So
Now, if you're an introverted person, that is probably quite attractive to have the other person speaking, because then you don't want to talk about yourself. For me, actually, you might find this a bit unusual to hear this, but that is the first time I've ever shown my family in a presentation.
Oh, no.
Never show normally in a presentation, but this is Find Your Element. And it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different group. So to show my son, to show my wife, for me as an introvert, that's quite a big step for me to do that, to share that personal thing with you, because introverts don't want to do that. So you're right. For people who may be introverted, they may feel very comfortable, to let you talk, and that takes a lot of social pressure away from them. Yeah. What else did you talk about?
We also talk about that. It also depends on the situation. So if you have to meet somebody to present something or to pitch an idea, then you have to actually talk. But then you should limit the time to maximize the time for discussion and to get the input from the other side. So maybe 5 to 10 minutes would be the maximum time for presenting something, and then the rest would be. There's a traditional 1 hour meeting here in Japan. You never can leave before 1 hour. So it's sometimes I like these very effective meetings when you only have 20 or 30 minutes and you have said everything and you agree on everything and then you can leave. But in Japan, you always stay 1 hour. So.
That's true, it's always an hour. Shell, how about you? Or yes, will you
Well, no, I was
please?
going to say it's kind of ironic that you're saying that in Japan, because we pretty much live in a westernized society, and I think I've noticed that way more in Western settings. But
How do we use this to build a better relationship?
I think we were talking about the concept of aizuchi in Japanese, and apparently that really doesn't exist, I guess, so much in American. Aizuchi, which means sort of like nodding with them, so your heads are kind of going like this at once. It's supposed to, kamazuchi is like a hammer, and it's kind of like two hammers going at the same time. So,
Do we have that though? I mean, have you ever noticed when you're on the phone, you're going, mm-hmm, yep, yeah, mm-hmm. We're doing aizuchi on the phone, aren't we?
Yes, exactly.
Very similar, yeah. But that says I'm listening, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I was kind of like saying, like, even when you like interrupt someone, it could actually be that you're sort of saying, let me cut you short because I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's like a shortcut into the conversation. Not necessarily always a bad thing, but the point is to be still like you're still actually a good listener.
Reinforcing that you're listening to them,
Exactly.
Paraphrasing what they said, or you're elongating their point and taking it to a natural extension, which shows you really were concentrating. How about you guys over here?
I think we're talking about, being a good listener probably reinforces all the points we were talking about earlier. If you really listen to how what someone is saying, you'll know them better. You can be genuinely interested in their life. You can give specific.
Yeah, arousing the other person and eager want by knowing what they want. That's probably helpful, isn't it? And this is in sales. If you can identify what the client wants, and then you can supply that, the chances of getting a sale go right up. But you've got to know what they want. And if you're talking all the time, as Christian said, you take up all the airspace. You've got no idea what they want. They want it in blue, and you're talking about pink the whole time. That's not very helpful. Right? Let's have a look. Two more. This is very similar. Talk in terms of the other person's interests, arouse in the other person an eager want. If we know what their interests are because we're genuinely interested in them, and we let them do the talking, we don't criticise, condemn, or complain about them. We might smile, have a very good first impression, or create the nice atmosphere. Then the person is going to feel we're on the same wavelength, aren't they? We're talking in terms of their interests, so particularly in the sales world, if we can be part of your success by making you successful, then we're all on the same win-win side here. But if we're doing all the talking about what we want, then maybe they don't feel the connection here. And this can be particularly the case in marriages. We're thinking about what we want all the time and talking about what we want all the time. We're not talking in terms of the other person's interest. So we're not on the same wavelength, we're at cross purposes. So this is something that, again, we look at our habits. We've built these habits up without any reflection on them, and we're probably continuing to do them without noticing. But now you've got your golden books and you look at those and you think, well, actually, am I in this conversation talking in terms of the interests of this person? Do I know what the interests of this person are? Have I built up a relationship to a point where they trust me to reveal their interests? You see how interconnected these things are? You're not going to get a person telling you their most deepest hard-held beliefs and interests if there's no trust. So things have to happen to get to that point. And then, number 9, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Well, this again, the key word is sincerely, not flattery. And this is, again, the differentiation. We can say, yes, what you're doing is very important, but often in businesses, in companies, because of the way tasks are broken down, someone can be very busy at work all day, working very hard, but the task itself, they may feel this is a pointless task, or this task is just a very tedious, repetitious task, and I don't get recognised for it. I don't feel that my little cog has got any connection to the big wheel of the organisation. I don't feel I'm adding any value. I'm certainly never recognised. Someone's ever praised me for what I do. I don't feel I'm connected. Now, I worked in banking for many years, and 12 years in banking, and it's interesting. You can have jobs, particularly back office jobs in banking, which are tremendously precise, boring, and repetitious. They're terrible jobs. I wouldn't want any of those. So you have to have a certain mindset for that. But the person who's doing it never gets recognised, and they just feel, well, I'm disconnected from the organisation. That's why their engagement scores are very low. They don't feel part of the organisation. They feel disconnected from it. They don't feel appreciated, and their motivation is not high, but they're sort of working, and the pay is usually not very high either. So it's very hard to motivate those people to be innovative, to be contributors, and all companies want people to be innovative. Very hard to get out of people who don't feel that what they're doing are important. So here are these 9 principles we've gone through tonight. Right? And when you look at these principles, each of them are very, very, very simple. Okay? If we stop criticising, condemning, complaining about people, we're not going to have a trust issue from the very go. All right? If we give honest, sincere appreciation, right, then people will respond to that. If it's believable, it's got to be credible. If we arouse an eager want in the other person, then their motivation is very high. If we smile at people, that's going to be very effective. A lot of these things, arousing the eager want and doing things, talking to people sincerely, these start to connect. Being interested in other people, remembering their name, make them feel important. You can see there's some overlap between these, but if you took that golden book and you said, right, I'm going to read this every day, even just these 9, I mean there's 30 of these, right, in human relations principles. Or you might say, I'm going to take 1 each day, and I'm going to do this all day long for the whole day. And you just keep doing that. You will start to build up a change in you, because people generally think, well, the other person's got to change. Taro, Kun, he's really got to fly straight, He's got to ship up, or he shape up, Really, he's the problem. And often, we're the problem. In fact, it's a big day today at TAC, Turkey American Club. I met a friend of mine, French, and he had an issue with his team, and I said, how's it going? He said, well, really, I think they are the problem. When we met, I said, you are the one who needs the training. He wanted training for the team. I said, no, let's start with you. He hasn't quite got me yet in terms of his awareness, right? He still thinks they're the problem. But this is often how it goes. If we want to have a different interaction with people, but we keep having the same angle of interaction, we get the same reaction all the time. Newtonian physics, for each action is an equal and opposite reaction. If we approach people in the same line, well, then we get the same counterpoint reaction all the time. By taking these principles and changing slightly, just slightly the angle with which you approach them, you'll get a different reaction. Now, we had a graduate, Japanese graduate, a little bit older gentleman, in one of our Dale Carnegie courses. And in his graduation speech, he said, this has been a fantastic course, amazing, people have been incredible, and you can't believe how much my wife has changed since I've done this course. Well, he hadn't quite worked out the wife hadn't changed. But without knowing it, he had changed, because the mere fact of taking up one of these principles, just the mere fact of that, you have already changed. Just by the mere fact of selecting a principle to use, you have changed. And your angle of opportunity to interact with others has changed, and your counter reaction will be different. So I invite you, change your life, be better with other people by starting with yourself. Use these simple principles, and you will guaranteed have a different and better reaction. Thank you very much for your attention.